The funeral is about to begin.
The Tall Man. Dangerous, mysterious, deadly. Yet no one seems to know who or what the Tall Man is exactly, or what drives him. And this is if you have seen the Phantasm film series. So you clicked on this video and you're probably thinking, what the fuck is this guy talking about? The Tall Man? The scariest horror villain? Absolutely. Now bear in mind, I am saying this in an instance of if you had to face any given horror villain, Freddy, Michael Myers, Chucky, Candyman, you have a better chance of surviving with any other horror villain than the Tall Man. I'm going to give you a few examples as to why the Tall Man is in fact the scariest horror villain of all time when you really put the math to work. Now of course it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. In order for me to explain this, there will be some spoilers, so if you have not seen the Phantasm film series, do yourself a favor, check it out. It's actually a pretty neat series, little humble set of films. Anyway, let's get this train moving.
Number 6. Immortality. The Tall Man seems to have the ability...
We're not doing that shit here, but he is right. The Tall Man is immortal. Now, not immortal in the classic sense as a singular person that can't be killed, but in the sense that when you do kill him, or at least a version of him, there's another one of him to replace himself. He exists in multiple realities. He does this through his tuning forks, which is a portal, a gateway, if you will, into other worlds. And in each one of those other worlds, there's another version of him that exists, all sharing a hive mind, all ready to pick up where another one might have left off with no problems whatsoever. So again, while you could maybe take a gun and shoot him, or take a machete and maybe cut his head off as an example, or hang him, or throw him down a ditch and pile a shit ton of rocks on top of him, he'll just come back. Another version of him will just be there ready to stalk you, and you're pretty much fucked. Of course, thanks to the Marvel Universe and Rick and Morty, multiverses and alternate realities are a very popular thing. This series was actually doing this way back from the start, from 1979, although it was later films that would reveal this little nugget of information. So, while the Tall Man, not in the singular sense, but in terms of reality, uniformity, if that's such a thing, I'm not a fucking scientist, so save it for the comment section. But he is considered what you can call a constant singularity amongst the multiverse. In any instance of reality that you're in, there's a version of him there doing his shit. And this is all thanks to his great invention, the tuning forks, which acts as his portal gun, his TARDIS, basically his means of travel. Now, the tuning forks aren't just capable of reality travel, they're also capable of traveling through time and space itself. So, yes, he can also time travel with these tuning forks. It has been exhibited in the movies that he can more or less pick a time and place thanks to the tuning forks. Another one of his skills is dream stalking. Now, we've only seen him do this a handful of times, and he's never killed anybody in their dreams, but when he is dream stalking, it is something he can do. It's a way of kind of keeping tabs on you, you know, and as it implies, you know, just stalking you, messing with your head. So I mean, that right there is scary enough. So even if you try to go to sleep, maybe you don't have to worry about getting killed like you would with Freddy Krueger, but it's still pretty fucking annoying if you're spending your whole life running from this guy, and even while you sleep you can't get peace from him. Also, let's not mention the fact that he himself also has super strength. He has exhibited the ability to lift coffins, so if you can get past his super strength and manage to kill him, it won't matter, there'll be another one just as fucking strong as he is, ready to get you. And last, we need to look at his skills for necromancy. He can raise the dead. He can bring zombies about if he wants to, or at least he has taken a corpse and reanimated it into just a basic zombie. He also reanimates corpse and uses them as slave labor. We have the grave diggers. We also have the bodies that he compacts into their dwarf form so he can ship them off to other worlds where the gravity is dense, or at least what we can assume based on what the first movie had taught us. And last but not least, my favorite form of necromancy that the tall man is capable of doing, which is basically compacting brains into the sentinel spheres, which, if you have never seen the Phantasm film series, no worries. I'm pretty sure at some point you came across a scene that had a sentinel sphere in it, and, well, pretty fucking cool to watch, but if you were on the victim end, I can guarantee not as cool. So that was just his powers and abilities. But when you think about it, when you're a perpetual god, what do you have time to do all day? Well, nothing really. We're all just fish in a bowl of him, so some fish he'll like to hang on to. And those fish are in the form of our main protagonists, Mike and Reggie. Sometimes Jody, depending on which reality we're in, but Mike and Reggie. So as a little background, Mike and Reggie were introduced in the first movie, Reggie being a simple ice cream man and a friend to Jody and Mike, who are brothers, and he would later on kind of become the show's poor man's Ash Williams. But I'm telling you right now, that is not an insult. Reggie's fucking awesome. Nobody else can rock a quad shotgun and a bald long haircut like that man can. And unlike Ash, he actually gets some once in a while. And then we have Mike, who the tall man seems to take a liking to. I guess he's looking to groom him to replace himself, so maybe there is a hole somewhere in that Immortality story, but we never actually saw this happen. But it does appear that he's trying to turn Mike into something like himself, something of his own kind. In the last movie from 2016, the tall man had admitted to Reggie that he kept him alive for mere amusement. I mean, while he does have plans for Mike, he certainly doesn't need Reggie for anything, but yet he seemed to need him to raise him, as mentioned at one point, look after him, protect him, and then, yeah, basically for his own amusement. Boredom, you know? So when you look at all the countless people that the tall man has killed, more on that later, by the way, the fact that Reggie's alive, is it a miracle, or is it design? The fact that Mike's alive is also a design. When you look at other horror heroes in other movies, and ones who have actually managed to stay alive throughout the entirety of that franchise, that is survival. Nancy Thompson, Laurie Strode, Andy Barclay, these are survivors. These are players who managed to best the villain. Mike and Reggie, they're just part of the design. Their intended purpose is to go where the tall man wants them to go. Which leads me into my next point, the kill count. Not doing an actual kill count, there's already a YouTube channel for that. However, though, I would love to see that channel try to do a proper kill count, especially when they're counting off-camera kills. Now, while we have seen many victims throughout the Phantasm series, and a good chunk of them weren't even killed by the tall man directly, most of it is his tools, it's his minions, you know, the sentinel spheres, the dwarves. If you were to take into account the many empty graves, empty towns, because our two heroes, Reggie and Mike, who follow the tall man town to town, across the country, state to state, in their black muscle car, just two guys who are like brothers, chasing monsters, hunting things. Does this sound fucking familiar to anybody? Well, needless to say, as Mike and Reggie encounter many empty towns, many empty graves, and, spoiler alert, but by the end of the movie, basically pretty much the end of the fucking world, all thanks to the Tall Man. So yes, if you want to sit there and rack up all the different kills between Michael Myers and Freddy and Jason, safe to say Tall Man has them all beat by a long, long shot. Now, of course, as any good horror movie franchise keeps going along, you're going to eventually run into the origins film where they kind of peel back the layers of the onion that is the monster, and sink or swim, we know a lot more about them than we probably should, and this is just simply movies running out of ideas. In the case of the Tall Man, though, we really don't know shit about him, and sometimes knowing the background on a character, you can kind of use that against them. I mean, just remember what Christy Cotton did to the Pinhead just by showing him a picture of his human form. That was it. He was done. She was fine. Well, momentarily at least. That doesn't sway the Tall Man. So what we did find out about the Tall Man was that he was a 19th century mortician named Jebediah Morningside, and who relatively just seemed to be a decent guy. I mean, from what we can see, you know, no designs on evil, no designs on anything particular, but he did invent the tuning forks, and it was when Jebediah crossed through that was the last time we saw him, because when he would come back, he would be what we would now know as the Tall Man, and nothing more. Now, despite knowing that much about this character, we still don't know shit about him. We don't know why he does what he does. We don't know why he's raising the dead to turn into slaves, why he kills a bunch of living people to turn into more slaves. Does he answer to a higher power? Does he have a boss of some kind? Or is he just one of those that saw the depths of reality and thought, hey, you know what? Life is fucking meaningless, almost like a Rick Sanchez complex. Now again, if you're in a fit of survival against the villain, everything you know about them is important. Everything they want you to think about them is important. So, whoop-de-doo, we knew he was once a human being. He doesn't give a shit. That doesn't give us nothing. We don't know why he's doing what he's doing. There's no Achilles heel in this fight. You're fucked. Now, of course, scary is subjective. I am doing this video to prove why the Tall Man is the scariest horror villain, and again, in the vein of if you had to go face to face with this fucking guy on your own. Still, with scary being subjective, of course, appearance is everything. Now, on the surface, the Tall Man just looks like a tall old man, but the scary factor, well, we really can't talk about that without talking about the man behind the Tall Man, and that is legendary actor Angus Scrimm, who brought life to this role. You could just look at this man and tell that there's just something off, that there's just something not quite right, something ominous, and that was something that really showed through in Angus's performance as the Tall Man. Now keep in mind, there was no makeup necessary for this character aside from regular makeup, but no heavy prosthetics, no animatronics, nothing crazy to that effect. You could even say he looks like a normal human being, but he gave such great approach to the role, almost a Dracula-esque type approach, which you would think by today's standards, and even for the standards of 1979 when the first film came out, would be hokey, but yet it fit the tone of the film perfectly. It never once came across as condescending to the material, and it certainly never came across as hokey. Nothing like Creedence Greer Gold, I can tell you that fucking much. No, there was a poise and a style that this man had going on, and it worked. He debuted in this role in 1979 at the age of 53. Can you imagine starting a legendary icon like this at an age like that? Unfortunately, the last film came out after he had passed away, in which they did do a post-mortem tribute to Angus. He had passed away at the age of 89. So here's a man who dedicated his life to this role in a film series spanning across 5 different decades and always delivering a 110% performance to the role. So on behalf of the horror community, thank you, Angus, for giving us the Tall Man. So let's recap a little, okay? So here you are. You can face villains. Think about the one that scares you the most. I'm going to be honest with you, I probably think that the concept of Freddy would scare me more than anything. But even at that, he's defeatable on some level. Michael Myers, stay out of Haddonfield, especially around Halloween. Jason Voorhees, stay out of Crystal Lake. Candyman, why even say his name in a fucking mirror? That's just, people are asking for that kind of trouble. Chucky, and for as much as I hate people that say, hey, he's just a doll, kick him, he is just a doll. The point is that you stand better chances with any of those opponents. Any of them. Your chances are actually pretty good in comparison, because where it concerns the tall man, your chances were depleted from the very start. I want to thank you for taking time to watch this video, and of course, with me being such a huge horror fan, I like to do a variety of topics, but I can tell you right now that at least 1 out of every 4 videos will be horror related in some fashion. Of course, if you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do. I completely forgot to bring this up before. You can also shapeshift.